Greetings, booktubers. Welcome back at Grammaticus Books. Welcome to a monumental edition of Grammaticus Books, where as a part of Sumerian September, which is a reading event created by Michael K. Vaughan over on his fantastic channel, as part of Sumerian September, I have read all the Conan pastiche novels throughout the month here in the Ace Lancer series of books, read all 12 of them, reading the pastiche novels, and then ranking all of the pastiche stories by Sprague de Camp and Lin Carter, assigning them a score from 1 to 10, putting them into a spreadsheet, which I will put up at the end of the video, and then ranking them to see which are the best and which are the worst of these pastiche stories, which I will now bring to you guys here on the channel today and give you guys the lowdown, the top to bottom, what is to be avoided at all costs and what is actually decent pastiche to read. There were 15 of these pastiche stories contained within these novels here. And as I'm going through and ranking them from top to bottom, I'll go from 15 up to 1. You're going to notice that there are some that are called pastiche that I've omitted out of here, such as Hawks over Shem. And the reason I omitted Hawks over Shem and others like Hawks over Shem is because Hawks over Shem was actually written by Robert E. Howard. It was a historical novel originally titled Hawks over Egypt. And Sprague de Camp just took it. He changed the place names to make it look like it was in Hyboria, to put it into a Hyborian setting. He added a page or two of a supernatural setting, and then he stamped his name on it and said it was his. And where I come from, that's not pastiche. We just call that theft. So those are out. You can't reasonably rank it here in pastiche because you're not ranking a pastiche novel. You're going to be ranking Robert E. Howard's writing because he wrote 80% of that, and it's not fair to put it in here. So those stories and stories like it are gone. But I went through all these stories. I've ranked them. There are 15 of them. Let's jump right into it with number 15. What is the worst pastiche story ever written here within the Ace Lancer novels? And the answer to that question is The Castle of Terror. The Castle of Terror from Conan the Barbarian, number 2. I ranked it, this is all ranked as 1 out of 10. I ranked it a 5.0. 5.0, there we go. And the reason I gave it a 5.0, the reason it's at the bottom of the barrel, is because in this story, Conan is completely superfluous to the story. He plays no role in this story whatsoever at all at any point. He is merely a uninvolved third-party witness who is fleeing from the Black Kingdoms. He's fleeing the kingdoms of Kush. He goes into a castle to rest for the night. And as he's in this castle, a troop of slavers comes in and also takes up residence in the castle, who they don't know that Conan is there. And as they're there, a Cthulhu horror materializes and then lays waste to the slavers. As Conan cowers in fear, watching this attack occur, he never intervenes. And then once the slaughter is over, he slinks out like a coward and runs away. And that is the Conan story, The Castle of Terror. It is one of the most ridiculous, un-Conan-like story I've ever read in my life. And he's completely unnecessary to the story. And for that reason, it comes in at number 15 with a score of 5.0. So that gets us number 14. 14 is The Hand of Nergal from Conan number 1, the eponymously titled Conan book in the Ace Lancer series right there. And The Hand of Nergal, much like The Castle of Terror, Conan is almost superfluous to this story. He's not completely superfluous, which is why it bumps up slightly above Castle of Terror. But in this story, Conan is battling the forces of an army that he's in the employ of an army. He's on the field of battle when supernatural forces come and they wipe out the army that Conan is in, and the only thing that saves his life is a magical gem that caught his eye on the way to the battle that he picked up and put in his pocket. As he's laying half dead on the battlefield, he's rescued by a Brythonian girl by the name of Hidilko, who brings him back to her father, and the father tells him that he is the prophesied one to release them from the evil that has befallen them, called the Hand of Nergal. And the Hand of Nergal is a wand that the ruler of the city is using and oppressing and murdering his peoples. So Conan agrees to help him out since he's the prophesied one. He has to do it. And he goes through the underground tunnels that they lead him through, takes him into the throne room, and he gets into a fight with the ruler who has the Hand of Nergal, who uses it to freeze him in his tracks. And as he's getting ready to be killed by the ruler of the city, Hidilko, who has gone with him, reaches into his pocket, grabs this gem, which is the Heart of Ahriman, throws it at the ruler, and then the Hand of Nergal and the Heart of Ahriman consume each other in a conflagration that kills the ruler. And that's the story. Conan's only purpose in the story is to act as transportation for the Heart of Ahriman to get it close to the ruler so that Hidilko can throw it at him. And for that reason, it comes in at number 14. So number 13, oh, and it got ranked, I ranked it a 5.0 as well. It gets bumped above Castle of Terror because Conan at least does something in this story. Number 13 is Conan of the Isles. This is the 12th book in the Ace series. It is right here, it was 6 in the Lancer. And this is Conan in his golden years as King of Aquilonia. And as King of Aquilonia, his kingdom is under assault from a magical menace. And he has to turn the kingdom over to his son Khan. He gets on a ship, which he sails across the ocean to the continent of North America. And on the continent of North America, he becomes the Quetzalcoatl god. He becomes the god Quetzalcoatl, the Mexican god Quetzalcoatl, and begins the conquest of North America. I kid you not, that is how ridiculous this book is from start to finish. This is just utter ridiculousness. I would have given it a 4.5, making it the worst of the pastiche. But because L. Sprague de Camp and Lin Carter put in the effort to make at least a full-length novel that in some weird, ridiculous way has a little bit of appeal, has a little bit of a hook of appeal and interest to it because it's so bizarre, I bumped it up 1 point and gave it a 5.5. But it comes in at number 13, Conan of the Isles. Which gets us to number 12, which is The Drums of Tombalku. Again, this is in Conan the Adventurer, which is book number 5 in the Ace series. In this one, Conan is a supporting cast member in this story. It starts off, it was a fragment originally by Robert E. Howard, who wrote the opening chapter of this book. And I think it was Steve Donoghue who said, as he was reading these pastiche stories, that he could tell absolutely where Robert E. Howard stopped off and L. Sprague de Camp and Lin Carter picked up. And I agree with that 100%. You can absolutely tell where the fragment that was begun by Robert E. Howard here with Drums of Tombalku stops, and Lin Carter and L. Sprague de Camp take over, because there's just a monumental drop-off in the quality of the writing. It's about a revolt that he gets involved in, and again, he's basically just a secondary supporting cast member in this story, and for that reason, it comes in at number 12 with a score of 5.5, The Drums of Tombalku. Which gets us to number 11. Number 11 is another full-length novel by L. Sprague de Camp and Lin Carter called Conan of Aquilonia. Conan of Aquilonia. And in this one, his son Khan, who is depicted here in this art by Boris Vallejo, which is kind of a boring Boris Vallejo cover if you ask me. King Conan, his son Khan, is kidnapped by Thoth Amon, and Conan has to go after him and retrieve him from the clutches of Thoth Amon. And then he takes his army after retrieving his boy, and he pursues Thoth Amon to the ends of the earth of Hyboria, and then off the ends of Hyboria, off of the map of the bottom of Zimbabwe and the southern kingdoms, in a final confrontation with Thoth Amon, where he does kill Thoth Amon. It's a series of 4 short stories that are strung together to form a composite novel by L. Sprague de Camp and Lin Carter. And I think a better title for this book would have been Father Knows Best, because it is Conan lecturing his son on how to be a king and how to be a warrior. At one point, Conan actually cries here in the book. His son is frequently crying and shaking in fear from the threats that he's under in a very un-Conan-like manner. And also, L. Sprague de Camp gives Conan a Pancho Villa-like mustache in this book. It is basically just fan fiction. And for that reason, it ranks in at 6.0 on the pastiche scale and goes into the poor category. Now, I did group these stories into 3 different categories. If you scored a 6 or below, I put it into the poor category. Anything in the 7 range was a fair category. And then if you got above 7, if you got 8 or above, then it went into the good pastiche category. And not surprisingly, by far and away, the majority of these stories fall into the poor category. But that was number 11, Conan of the Isles. Number 10 is Wolves Beyond the Border from Conan the Usurper, which is number 8 in the series. And the reason that this is in the poor category, I ranked it 6.0 on the pastiche scale, is because Wolves Beyond the Border, Conan again is just a supporting member. He's a supporting actor in his own story. And this is basically L. Sprague de Camp taking the story beyond the Black River, which is an excellent Robert E. Howard story. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Robert E. Howard story. And he is just converted beyond the Black River and changed the locale and made it his own, but done it in a horrendously horrific and far worse manner than that excellent story by Rodney Howard. And for that reason, it comes in at 6.0. It's a terrible story. That was number 10. Gets us to number 9. Number 9 is Lair of the Iceworm in Cimmerian, Conan the Cimmerian, number 2. Lair of the Iceworm, Conan is traveling north and traveling south out of the northern kingdoms, where he comes upon a damsel in distress who's being attacked by cavemen. Conan rushes in, as Conan usually does. He slays the cavemen, and then he takes this girl who he can't understand at all, and he wants her to bivouac down for the night. And the girl is like trying to impart to him that, no, it's dangerous, you can't stay here. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. So they stack out, they camp out in this bivouac area with a spot where this girl is telling him that it's not safe, and she gets lured away from him while he's dozing and sleeping in the middle of the night and gets murdered. So on his watch, the damsel in distress gets killed. Conan gets up, gets mad, and exacts revenge on the iceworm, which is a remora. And it's just an awful story. And at the end of it, he's like, yeah, whatever, I'll just keep going south. And for that reason, it comes in at number 9. I ranked it 6.5 on the scale, which gets us to number 8. And number 8 actually comes in with a score on the pastiche scale of 7.0. So we bumped out of the poor category, and we're now into the fair to midland category of pastiche stories. So these are stories that are actually readable. And the first one at 7.0 is Snout in the Dark from Conan the Cimmerian. In this one, he's involved in a revolt in the kingdom of Kush, and it has a lot of decent Conan-like elements in it, has a lot of decent Rodney Howard Conan elements in it. One of the parties has made use of a sorcerer and his sorcery in order to conjure this werewolf-like creature that is killing off his political rivals, and predictably Conan has to come in to save the day. And there's a massive battle for the city at the end of it that just turns into a conflagration that burns the city to the ground, and Conan is forced to flee. And it's halfway decent. It's readable. And that is at number 8, Snout in the Dark, writing a 7.0. So that gets us to number 7 on our tail, and number 7 on our list of pastiche stories is Black Tears and Conan the Wanderer, number 4. In Black Tears, Conan is the head of a Zugair band who has been raiding King Turin, the king of Turin's areas, and laying waste to his outposts and pillaging and raping and doing all the things that the Zugairs do. So the king of Turin sends out a band to ambush him, and they have been assisted by a traitor within Conan's ranks of his Zugairs. And this traitor leads Conan into an ambush in the desert. Conan and his Zugairs overcome the ambush, but the traitor escapes and flees into the desert. And Conan pursues this deserter, this traitor, into the desert and wants to exact his revenge upon him. So he follows him into the desert. His Zugairs go with him, but the Zugairs become afraid because he has gone into an area that is supposedly cursed, and they desert Conan in the middle of the night. But Conan predictably goes on, and he finds a lost city in the middle of this desert area. And anytime you have a lost city in a Conan story, I'm automatically going to give you a 1-point bump. So you get a 1-point bump for Conan in this lost city. He finds a damsel in distress in the city, and he's still tracking down this deserter. And he finds the deserter in the throne room of the city, where there's a Gorgon that has been terrorizing the inhabitants. And as he gets to the Gorgon is in the process of turning the deserter into a statue of stone. And it's taking a slow amount of time for this process to happen. And it is excruciatingly painful. And Conan, in an act of mercy, chops off the traitor's head, putting him out of his misery. And then he has to deal with the Gorgon. And he doesn't have a romantic interlude with the damsel in distress. So you had a lot of great elements going in here, but ultimately, because he doesn't exact revengeance, since he actually performs an act of mercy on the traitor and then doesn't seal the deal with the damsel in distress, I gave it a 7.0 as being okay, but it could have been better if Sprague de Camp had half a brain in him and just carried out the logical endings to these story plots that he set up at the start of this novel, or this novella, I should say. And that's number 7, Black Tears, which gets us to number 6. Number 6 is The Return of Conan, which is Conan the Avenger, number 10. This is another complete novel by Sprague de Camp and Bjorn Nyberg. And I think Bjorn Nyberg probably wrote the majority of this. I'm sure L. Sprague de Camp put a couple words in here, here and there, so that he could throw his name up on the cover as well. And it basically turns into King Conan's greatest hits. He turns his kingdom over to, I think it's Trocero, if I remember correctly. He heads out on his own, and he travels east across the Hyborian kingdoms, reliving his past glory days until he can confront this eastern wizard who has kidnapped his wife. And along the way, he runs into King Yildiz, or Yezdigerd. That is the hardest king name to say. I stumble on it every time. Yezdigerd is the son of King Yildiz, who Conan worked for as a mercenary for years and years. And Yezdigerd has it out for Conan. And he comes after Conan, and you have a battle on the seas with galley ships. And at the end of it, Conan actually beheads King Yezdigerd. That is tough. Try saying that 3 times in a row. I dare you. Here in Conan the Avenger. So Nyberg here, he takes some excessive liberties with the history that Robert E. Howard has set up here within the Hyborian kingdoms by having him kill off King Yildiz's son. It is essentially fan fiction here by Bjorn Nyberg and L. Sprague de Camp, primarily Bjorn Nyberg, but I gave it a 7.5 ranking. And the reason I gave it a 7.5 ranking is because you do have a lot of good elements. There is sort of a nice plot line to it, and Bjorn Nyberg can write a heck of a lot better than L. Sprague de Camp. L. Sprague de Camp is not the best writer in the world. He thinks he is, but it's a little better written, but it is kind of on the ridiculous side at the same time. But I did give it a 7.5. So that is The Return of Conan from Conan the Avenger number 10, which gets us to number 5. We're into the top 5. And the 5th best pastiche story of all time is The Curse of the Monolith from Conan the Cimmerian. In this one, Conan is again in the employ of King Yildiz, the Turanians, and he has been given a letter of friendship to deliver to a neighboring kingdom. They want to seal an alliance between King Yildiz and this neighbor, King Yildiz does. So he has entrusted Conan with this letter, and he has sent his Duke Fang as an emissary to the kingdom to go with Conan. And Duke Fang, however, is trying to overthrow Yildiz. He is part of the Golden Pheasant revolt crowd. And so as they're halfway out on their journey to this kingdom with the letter, he lures Conan out in the middle of the night with a tale of treasure, and he lures Conan close to this black monolith. And the black monolith is magnetic, and it just sticks Conan to it. Duke Fang then pulls out his pipes and begins to call down a Cthulhu-like horror that materializes on the top of the monolith and begins to ooze down to absorb Conan, where it will destroy the letter, and he will then destroy the party, ending this friendship party and weakening King Yildiz. Conan, however, in a predictable Conan fashion, escapes out of it, grabs Duke Fang and throws him up against the monolith so that he gets consumed by his own monster that he's called down. And it's a really good story. It is a solid Conan story with solid Conan elements and a nice Cthulhu horror to it, element to it, and a good ending that was well written by L. Sprague de Camp. And for that reason, it comes in at number 5, and I rate it an 8.0 on the pastiche scale. Which brings us to Conan number 4, the top pastiche story number 4 in our list. And that is Conan in the City of Skulls from Conan number 1. And again, we have Conan in the employ of King Yildiz of Turan. And this time he is on another mission in order to form an alliance. He is going to the Great Khan, and he has been entrusted with one of King Yildiz's daughters to deliver her in order to secure a marriage with the Great Khan and cement the alliance. And this time, Conan has Zuma, the Kushite warrior, with him. Zuma, that is. I don't think I said that very well. And Zuma is with him, and he is very well written by L. Sprague de Camp. I like how he writes Zuma the warrior in this. And as they are traveling with this troop of Turanian knights, they are ambushed by emissaries, by a attack group from the City of Skulls that wants the daughter for himself and wants to break up this alliance. So they are captured, Zuma, Conan, and the daughter being held in the City of Skulls. And predictably, they break out. You have the basic Conan elements. They break out from their jail cell. They rescue the daughter. They slay the head of the City of Skulls. And then they eventually deliver the daughter to the Great Khan in order to cement the alliance. But as they're going to hand the daughter over, Conan tells Zuma that she's pregnant with his spawn, which was a nice touch. I got a laugh out of that. And it's well written, and for that reason it comes in at number 4 with a ranking of 8.0. which gets us to the top 3 on our list, the top 3 pastiche stories of all time, the top 3 that are worth your time to go ahead and read out of the Ace Lancer novels. And number 3 is Hall of the Dead out of Conan number 1. And I ranked this one 8.0 again, but I put it up above the other 2 in front of it that also had 8s because I think it has some better elements to it. And it's got another Lost City. And like I said, if it's got a Lost City in it, it automatically gets a 1-point bump in my book because I love Lost Cities in the Hyborian realm. This one, we've gone back to when Conan is a youth. I think he's a thief in Ascalon. I don't remember. I hope that's right. Somebody correct me down in the comments section below if I'm wrong. But he's a thief in the city of Ascalon, and he has gone out on a mission to find this lost city that has this hidden treasure in it. But the city of Ascalon, being fed up with his thieving antics, has sent a patrol of guards after him to capture him or kill him, led by Nestor, a gunderman. Conan espies this group that is pursuing him, and he buries them in an avalanche, except for Nestor, who he thinks he has killed in combat, but he's only wounded him and knocked him out. Conan goes on into the city, where a giant slug that protects the city attacks Conan, and he has to slay the slug, and then Nestor comes upon him and challenges him to another duel. And Conan says, hey, look, your entire squad just got wiped out. Even if you kill me or capture me and bring me back, they're going to hang you for losing your entire squad. Instead of us fighting, why don't we team up and go get the treasure together? And Nestor thinks it over, says that it's reasonable, concludes that it's reasonable. They probably will hang him, and they team up and they go into the Hall of the Dead in order to get this fabulous treasure. And the Hall of the Dead has all these mummified warriors in it, and there's gems everywhere, but there's one gem-encrusted statue of a serpent that Conan wants. And he takes this gem-encrusted statue as his portion of the treasure, and when he does, predictably, the mummies come to life, and they have a fight and have to escape out of the temple. And as they come out of the temple, and Conan has the statue of the serpent, an earthquake hits, and he and Nestor get separated. Back in Ascalon, in a tavern, he meets up and he's bragging about his treasure when the guard finds him again, led by a magistrate, and the greedy magistrate thinks that he's going to get Conan's treasure, sticks his hand into the sack with the serpent, and the serpent has been converted into a live venomous serpent that kills the magistrate and provides for an escape outlet, the confusion to let Conan escape the tavern and continue on with his thieving ways in the city of Ascalon. And it's really well done. And not only is it well done, it was adapted into Conan the Barbarian number 8 here as the Keepers of the Crypt. And I actually like this comic book version of the adaptation better than the original pastiche story. The art in here by Barry Windsor Smith is phenomenal. And the adaptation by Roy Thomas is very good as well. So if you have that one, I highly recommend reading it. That is number 3, Halls of the Dead, which gets us to number 2. And number 2 on the list is Conan the Buccaneer. I know this one's going to be controversial. I can hear Michael K. Vaughan yelling at his computer screen right now. And where did I put it? Here it is. Give me a second. This is a very long video. Conan the Buccaneer, a full-length novel by Sprague de Camp and Lin Carter. It's one of the 4 full-length novels. It is, in my opinion, the only one of those novels that isn't just pure fan fiction from start to finish, that isn't just ridiculousness from start to finish. And the reason it isn't ridiculousness is because Sprague de Camp and Lin Carter reach into a lot of Robert E. Howard stories, and they take those elements out of those stories that they liked best, and they combine them here into this full-length novel, Conan the Buccaneer. And because they're using authentic Robert E. Howard plot points that they have sort of stolen and then massaged a little bit, it reads much better than Conan of the Isles, which is just horrendous, or Conan of Aquilonia, which is Father Knows Best fan fiction, or Conan the Avenger, which again is just more fan fiction. It reads like an actual Conan novel. It's a full-length novel. It's not written anywhere near as well as Robert E. Howard could. Sprague de Camp and Lin Carter, they're not even in the same category or the same room as Robert E. Howard, but it is fun. It is a light popcorn read that holds its novelty, holds its attraction from start to finish, that does read like an actual Conan story. And for that reason, I give it 8.5. I really enjoy this. And on the pastiche ranking, it comes in at number 2, Conan the Buccaneer. Fight me down in the comments section if you disagree. And that goes for any of the rankings in here. I'd love to hear your guys' rankings. But that does get us to number one. What is the best Conan pastiche story ever written? And the answer to that question is, it is The Thing in the Crypt from Conan number one, hands down. The Thing in the Crypt, where Conan is fleeing after killing his jailer, being pursued by wolves, where he goes into a cavern that opens up into a hewn out a stone tomb in the middle of this hill, and he finds the thing in the crypt and the Atlantean sword, or at least it's the Atlantean sword in the movies. But it's an original idea. It is a fantastic idea that was originally fleshed out by Lin Carter, and it was fleshed out by Lin Carter for his character Thongor of Lemuria. But Lin Carter never wrote the story out. He just had the outline of it, and he gave it to L. Sprague de Camp, and L. Sprague de Camp put meat on the bones and created the story, The Thing in the Crypt. And it is an original Conan idea that reads and it feels like a Robert E. Howard story, like it was a story that Robert E. Howard would have come up with himself. It is an excellent, excellent story that just has a visceralness to it, that just reaches out and it grips you in like a primordial way, in like a deep, ancient type of way of bringing up these ancient burial rites that really gets a hold of you and just grabs you and sucks you into a great story. Now, it does have problems. I think the fight between Conan and the Thing in the Crypt, L. Sprague de Camp left a lot of meat on the bone. He just wrapped it up very quickly. At times, you can tell L. Sprague de Camp is just putting these stories together and finishing them off as quick as he can. It has that feeling to it, and the fight ends very abruptly. Had L. Sprague de Camp taken the time to flesh out a very good combat scene between Conan and the Thing in the Crypt, I think I would put this up. It's the one pastiche story here in the Ace Lancer series that I would put into the same category as a Robert E. Howard story. He doesn't, however, so it falls a little short, but I think it is the best of the pastiche stories because it is such an original idea, because it does have such a primal grip on people when they read it. And because of those reasons, it was adapted numerous times outside of the stories. It got adapted into the 1982 film Conan the Barbarian, where they lift the Thing in the Crypt story in total, and stick it right into the film and do a great job with it. It gets converted into comic book form here in issue number 92 with Roy Thomas and Sal Buscema doing their version of the Thing in the Crypt, which is a wonderful adaptation of it. And then most recently, it was adapted in the 2022 film The Northman with Alexander Skarsgård, where they do the entire scene of Thing in the Crypt within a barrow, white tomb there in that movie, and they do a fantastic job with the fight scene. They make an incredible fight scene with it. And because this story has legs, because it has such a mass appeal, that's why it's had so many adaptations, why it's such an original idea, why it's such a great idea that Lin Carter came up with, that L. Sprague de Camp then fleshed out, is why I put it in at number one. But I got to wrap this one up. This one's gone on a long time. My voice is going. I would love to hear what you guys think. Are my choices all bunk? Did I screw it all up? What are your top three? What are your bottom three and why? Put it down in the comments section. I'd love to hear it. I do read and respond to all the comments. And with that, I'm going to wrap this one up and say take care, be safe, and I will catch you guys next time.